Hey there guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to the witching half hour or so. You're here with me, Jody Ann, your favorite card slinger and village witch. How are you for real though? How's your week been? I'm doing good. As I record this, the sun is finally like shining and staying here in the lower mainland. We've had a really soggy, bloggy spring. And this week, summer showed up. So this thing is happening where, because it's so bright out, I forget what time it is. And I keep forgetting to start supper at a decent time. So my little family, we're not eating until like 7:30, 8 o'clock because we're like all so shocked that it's still bright out and there's still like sun coming in our windows. Today is a tarot episode. We're going to talk about the death card today, lucky number 13 of the High Arcana. I do have a wee bit of housekeeping. The first piece is I just want to thank you all for your time, for tuning in, for spending time with me here in your earbuds, for all of the subscribers and followers that we have on the Instagram and the TikTok page. Those are just like, and the YouTube page, like, you guys, it just makes me feel so warm and fuzzy. You know, I have never really paid for ads or done any marketing, and our podcast subscription numbers keep going up and the YouTube channel keeps going up, and just gives me hope that one day I can, you know, work less at my exhausting muggle job and do more witchy stuff for you guys. On that note, we do have a Patreon that's live now. It is $5 American a month to subscribe. Your subscription will give you access to extended episodes, like extended interviews with my guests. There's also meditations and a couple juicy things on there. What else is happening? Oh, yeah. So this is coming out in May, and in June, mid-June, I am hosting and teaching a tarot masterclass. I've been working on it in the background this spring, picking away at it. It's been a busy spring, but it's ready. I'm going to be teaching that class through Zoom. So no matter where you are, you can take this class. I'm offering it for $68. It is a 90-minute masterclass. We're going to walk through the High Arcana of the Tarot. We're going to dive into it. It's different than when we talk here on the podcast about each card. It's just a different format. What else can I tell you about it? I've taught this class before, and what made me think of putting it in a masterclass is when I've taught it before, I think of this as a 101 class, and every time I teach it, it's new information, even for readers who've been working with the tarot for a long time. So I'm excited to offer it to you. It's the Fool's Journey Through the Tarot. It is how I learned the tarot and how the High Arcana was broken down for me all those many years ago, back when I was a teenager. Sign up information and everything will be on the webpage, www.jodyanpsychicmedium.com. Okay, so let's look at this card, the Death card. So this is a fun one to talk about because even people who know nothing about the High Arcana or the total makeup of the tarot, that there's even like suits and trumps, most people are familiar with the Death card because it shows up in movies, right? So many movies, so many TV shows, the Death card makes its appearance. Rarely do the movies get it right? Like, you know this. They always look at it and they're like, oh, it's a foreboding death. You will die by midnight. Like, it's always something fun like that. And that is not what the death card is about at all. When I read for people, it's funny because if they've never had a reading before and the death card comes up, if they're not an occult student and this card makes an appearance in their spread, most people get nervous. I'm sure you guys have also experienced that. What the death card really is all about is transition. Now, we as a culture, we tend to have problems with letting go. We as a culture in North America are quite removed from rituals around death, releasing and letting go. We forget that releasing, dying, letting go is a natural part of the cycles of life. And I think that's more like this disconnection from the natural cycles. I think that, I can only speak to it as a North American person because I was born in Canada. I've lived in Canada. That's my lens. That's my frame of reference. I also wonder though, if there's a piece because this is a colonized land and there's this history of the English monarchy and all this stuff coming in and wiping out the indigenous people, that we have just lost, that here in North America, we don't have a great connection to rituals around death. And the whole neo-pagan movement that started in the 70s has really been reclaiming this idea of natural flow and living in alignment with nature. Because there really does seem to be this cultural norm where what we do here in North America is we produce, push through, and there's no relax period. It's this hustle culture that is so focused on doing and doesn't have built into it levels of rest or respite or contraction. It's just always supposed to be bigger. I don't know. A little digression from me. Think about it. Getting back to this death card though, what it does represent is cycles. And we see this in other cards. We have the cycles of the Wheel of Fortune, right? The cycles of fate. And this is just such a beautiful card because it lays out for us, we must let go in order to be reborn. We must let go in order to have anything new. It's that idea of when your hands are full, you cannot take on more things. You only have two hands. So if you're clutching tightly to what is in your left hand and what is in your right hand, there is no way that you can receive anything more. And the death card being in that high arcana position, we are looking at this from that big, expansive, archetypal view. Newness cannot come without the death and decay of the old. It's a simple concept, but such a difficult one for us to wrap our heads around and deal with. And so that's why we have, I feel, in our kind of movie Hollywood culture, this doom and gloom about a card that is about renewal. And really, it's not a card that we need to be fearing. There really is no doom or gloom attached to the meanings in this card. The death card is about the natural flow of a cycle and how it comes to completion. It's about completion. It's about endings. And most artists, and you guys will see this because every one of these tarot episodes, I make a YouTube for you guys and we look through my collection of decks. And I'm going to pull a bunch of different diverse decks on this card specifically because there's so much in our collective conscience about this card. The death card, the artists typically put in elements of hope. So you will see that when we look through the YouTube. If you want to find that, just take a minute, open YouTube, search up the witching half hour or so. You'll see my little face. And there's a bunch of episodes in there that all have to do with tarot that I do for you tarot enthusiasts. And there's also like monthly readings. I try to do a bunch of stuff on there. But anyway, the elements of hope are important because we cannot do anything in a vacuum. I don't know if cannot is the right word. We just don't do anything in a vacuum. Like we talk about these concepts of death and renewal and the closing of one chapter and the opening of another chapter as if there's some kind of definite defined moment where newness happens. And there isn't. There isn't. You know? We transition through change. That is the natural flow of how things work as people on this planet. We don't just, like with your birthday, take your birthday, for example, like often I say to my kids or young people, I'm like, oh, like how does it feel to suddenly be 4? When really there's no change. It's not like children go to sleep as a 3-year-old and they wake up on the anniversary of their birthing and have a big change in their outlook. It's not like they automatically, get a new size shoe and a bigger body and more insight on a specific day. We grow and transition. It's a process. It's a process of going through these cycles, and they're messy. Transitions especially. Transitions are one of the things that typically they have a bit of a sneaky start and they ebb in and then they flow out. And at their peak, there can be a lot of grief or joyfulness or fear or whatever emotion it is. It's usually pretty intense. And so this card, as you're reading for people, that's what it's telling you. As you pull this card or as you have this card show up in your life, it's pointing to the fact that, hey, baby, be nice to yourself. You're transitioning. You're processing something. You're going through something. You are in the whirlwind. It's not usually a physical death. Now, I have had it once come up as a physical death for someone's cat. And loves, that's once I've been reading cards since I was 17. And I've been doing it professionally for more than 14 or 15 years. I think it's close to 20 years I've been reading professionally. And in all that time, once this card has come up to mean an actual death. And it was not the death of a person. So it's about transition. And I've been doing work recently, personal work, on the ideas of transition and breaking down this thought pattern of like, I start here, I end here. We often think about transitions and cycles in the context of, I want to release this. And so we do a ceremony and we release it. Or I want to manifest this. So we do a ceremony for manifestation. And we think about creation and destruction as two very separate entities. Maybe we might even think of them as like sides to a coin. Now, recently, I've been adjusting how I work my magic, and I've been thinking about releasing and manifesting as partners, not two separate things, but as partners. And this totally relates to the death card because you see it in the artwork and you see it in the way this card shows up. Because it's about the emotion and the energy inside a transition. This card contains grief, but it also contains hope. just like when we are in the middle of a transition. So instead of thinking them as separate entities that happen in an isolated vacuum, think about death and birth as a garden. Okay, I got this wisdom from an astrologer I follow, Oath Oracle. You go follow her, she's cool. Anyway, the idea is when we are gardening, when we are in our garden and we're planting seeds, we're working the soil. And if we see a weed, we pull it out. We're destroying as we're planting. So in the spring, when we're planting all of our seeds and we're doing all of our manifestation work and we're putting, say, some compost in and we're putting in some, I don't know, some peat moss or whatever you put in your garden where you are. As you mix that in and you prepare the soil for your seeds, if you see weeds, you pull them out. If you see old, gangly, yucky roots that are rotted, you pull them out. If you see big clunky rocks that are going to get in the way, you pull them out as you plant. They're not isolated things. And also, in the fall, when you're cleaning your garden, right? You're pulling out all the fallen leaves and you're making a mulch in one area, or you're also pruning back, but you don't rip out a root ball of a perennial. You tend to the life that's there as you take away the death. You do what you need to do to preserve the life of your strawberries. Like maybe you put straw around them. You might wrap your roses to preserve them going into winter. You might make sure that the tulip bulbs are nice and firm and good in there so that they can sleep through the winter. So you're tending to life and you're tending to death in your garden all the time. So we can think of our energy work like that. And the death card is a perfect one to look at. Because within this card, you have both aspects of the cycle happening at the same time. You will have a symbol of release or death, and you'll have a symbol of life or rebirth on this card. Because with everything we let go of, as we let go of it, we transform and transition into something new. We release, we let go, we grieve, we have the emotions around it, and that leaves us open to receive something new. And the actual process of grieving, of crying or feeling the loss or allowing ourselves to validate that we're moving through and transitioning, that process shifts us emotionally into a space where we are ready for something new. If we just shove down those emotions, if we just power through transition instead of acknowledging and slowing and grieving and releasing and doing through it, we won't energetically be ready for something new. I hope that makes sense. I hope that helps you with the understanding of this card. I do want to just touch a bit on some of the ways it can show up for your clients and for yourself. I know I did talk about it being the peak of transition. So you as a reader, when this shows up for your clients, like everything in the tarot, and this is one of the reasons I just love tarot, is based on the symbology of the card, I can tell a lot about the emotional state my client is in. High Arcana cards are going to have a higher emotional value within a spread than other cards. And also the Death card, we know that our culture has a hard time with transition. So when it shows up, it's letting you know that whatever your client is going through, no matter how mundane or simple or casual the question seems to be, their emotional energy behind it is huge. This is a big deal moment for that person. because they are going through the big transition for them. We want to always remember that when we're reading these kinds of cards, that the tarot will unlock for us, especially when we are looking at, like if you take certain spreads, when you're looking at where a card is positioned, right? If a death card shows up in like an opposing area or a negative aspects of a spread, you know that this person you're reading for is fighting the transition. If it shows up in a position that is talking about time and the death cards behind them, you know they're coming out of a huge transition and they're moving into a place of action. So thinking about that and thinking about some of the main topics our clients come to us with, questions about love, choices, career changes, family changes. So if a client is asking about a relationship and the death card comes up, does that mean the relationship is going to die? Not necessarily. It means that something has to transition. In order to move your client through this process and into happiness and into fulfillment within their relationship, something has to die. And remember, as readers, we're not so much givers of answers. We will direct people to information and truth because our client has free will. I believe it's our job, and this is totally like my morals and my thing, like you do you when you're reading for your people. I really feel like the role of us as seers and healers and readers, card slingers as I like to call us, our role is to guide people and to give them honest information, right? That's my whole jam. Like, I do not spiritually bypass. I do not shove toxic positivity in people's faces. I do not believe it's all love and light and unicorns. I believe we're humans, that this plane of existence can be tough. And I was put here to assist people through these things by giving them the best insight I possibly can. And then it's up to that client to move forward with understanding, with clarity, and make conscious, powerful decisions about their life, no matter what the circumstances, no matter if they're deciding between two terrible choices, which happens a lot in the human condition. Oh, I am so digressy today. Wow, I'm very digressy. This is a great episode, I feel. I don't know how much it really relates to the death card other than we just keep talking about transitions, which is a huge topic. What was I babbling about? I was talking about how the card can show up for your clients relating to their different questions. So when it shows up, know that it's talking about transition. And that transition doesn't necessarily have to be a physical transition. Your client may need to let go of an idea, a concept, something they are tied to. They may need to let go of expectations they have outgrown. I find this card is easier to read when it's talking about a condition where your client's happiness and sense of well-being has been squished up and they need to let go of something. That is the easiest time this card comes through. It comes through when they have a toxic boss and they need to change something. Or they're actually telling you, you know, I'm in my 50s and all my kids just moved out, right? And you can see the actual transition in their physical life that this card is talking about. That's when it's the easiest to read. When it's the hardest is when it's an emotional letting go, an emotional wall they've been banging their head against and they need to move through it. That's when it takes all of our amazing psychic skills to tune into the death card and the cards around it and its position in a spread to really, really guide our clients and give them information about how to move through the transition with as much grace as possible. Okay, well, there we have it, loves. That is our episode on the death card. I think I'm going to leave it there. It's a bit of a brainful today, hey? Lots of little tangents and little twisty turns. I hope you enjoyed it. You know what? I really hope to see any of you who are in the earbud coven whose faces I haven't seen on a Zoom. I'd love to see you in my next tarot class. That'd be really fun. I hope that gives you insight as a reader and helps you in your journey with this beautiful deck of cards. There will be a YouTube that's going to drop on the same day as this episode. I have not yet decided what cards I want to show you in that. It's going to be a surprise for both of us, what ends up in there. You know what would be fun though? Especially, yeah, you know what would be fun? I'm going to put a poll on this episode because like Anchor and Spotify let you do that now. And it won't make it into the death card episode, but if you guys want to vote on which decks you want me to show you or what you're interested in seeing on the YouTubes, that would be really fun for me. That would be really fun. So yeah, if you're listening to this on Spotify, I think you'll get a little poll at the bottom. I don't know if it crosses into Apple or not. And so click on it and let me know what decks. I'm going to choose a couple that I use all the time. And yeah, you guys let me know. What else have I got to say? I think that's everything. I think I did all my housekeeping at the beginning. Show notes will be on my website, of course, www.jodianpsychicmedium.com. Links to all that's going on, I don't know, are on my webpage. This is the worst marketing I've done, isn't it? Oh. Wow. I just keep looking out the window, so I'm going to sign off because I clearly want to be outside. Have a lovely day. Thank you for joining me in the coven. And I'll see you soon on another witching half hour or so.